Um, so welcome everyone. Some housekeeping first. So it's just me on the call right now, from Capital Bike. I just have to, if you see anyone that needs admitting into the meeting, feel free to let me know. Because we don't have, it's just me doing both the admin side of things and the presenting side of things. Capital Bike staff are um, busy today with other activities gearing up for Go by Bike Week. So if you do want to speak, feel free to raise your hand or type into the chat, and I can enable your microphone. Everyone's currently set to have their microphones turned off and their video turned off. So if you do want to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand. I can enable your audio. It will probably be easier for you to type it into the chat as well, and then I'll be able to see your chat message and answer your questions. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and get this meeting rolling. Uh, so thanks everyone for coming today. My name is Edward Pullman, Ed Pullman, as I am also called. I am a route planning for safer cycling is this workshop. It's very similar to a workshop I gave last year. Um, and Pretty much I've just taken the workshop from last year, and I've gotten a whole bunch of rides submissions from folks, which I'm very pleased about. Just a quick acknowledgement that we acknowledge and respect the Wakaniet peoples on whose traditional territory we are on right now, and very pleased with our uh, reconciliation ride that we did last year, which was a really excellent event. We're looking forward to doing it again next year. Um, and we'll just jump straight into it. Why route plan? So most riders are traffic intolerant. So folks who are new to cycling generally prefer cycling on roads that are more comfortable to ride on and don't have heavy, fast-moving traffic on it. So generally, we do try to seek out routes that are low stress. Um, but the challenge, of course, is that a lot of folks aren't aware of where these routes are because we don't have very good wayfinding in the region for getting from point A to point B. There are certainly lots of safer connector routes that we can take, but the challenge is, of course, finding them in a lot of cases. So today I'm going to go through a number of examples. Um, Route planning is all about trade-offs. So we don't really have a AAA all ages and abilities network to get us across the city. We do have some individual routes that can get you from point A to point B. Taking more direct routes typically means more interactions with vehicles, more potential conflicts with vehicles. Um, then there's the trade-off of trail riding versus road riding. More comfortable routes on trails, but they can definitely take longer. And, one thing to always keep in mind, if you're riding lots of unpaved trails, that means your bike's going to get dirtier. You need to, clean it more and things like this. Um, it's just a graphic showing some levels of cyclists. This is probably a decade old now. The survey results here, but just showing the different levels of comfort that cyclists have with various protection from traffic. And obviously you can see that um, the greater the separation, so whether that's going to be raised concrete curbs, definitely, or the best example, plastic ballers or things like that, that the greater level of separation we have between cyclists and pedestrians will produce, between cyclists and motorists will produce folks that feel more comfortable riding. Definitely not rocket science. Um, some general tips for folks: avoid uncontrolled left turns, make left turns with some sort of signalized crossing. Rush hour is generally 7 a.m. to, oh geez, sorry, that's supposed to say 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is when we're going to find roads and trails to be generally busier. And, looking at crash data that we see, definitely really encourage folks to, in some ways, be more careful on our multi-use trails than on the roads, because we actually see higher crash rates between cyclists and pedestrians on those multi-use trails. Well, and also conflicts at intersections such as road crossings as well. So I think it's really important for folks to keep in mind that just because you're riding a multi-use trail doesn't actually necessarily mean you are riding a safer route. Um, so some websites to check out definitely. Google Maps, which I'm going to be talking about extensively. So what folks have done is they've sent in, we've gotten about a dozen, 15 routes that were sent in by folks. So what I am going to do is go through these routes on Google Maps and show, in some cases, I've modified the route. In other cases, I've left it as the default. So just to show you some of the routes, some good ways to take, some of the suggestions that Google gives you, which are a little ridiculous, or at least I feel they're a little ridiculous, and some of the challenges you can run into with Google. Um, bikemaps.org. I don't know if folks are familiar, but bikemaps.org is a kind of an open source bike map where you can put anything essentially on the map. So what's really good about bike maps is you can record bike theft. So areas where bike theft is high, areas where you see lots of conflict between different road users, whether it's cyclists on car, cyclists on pedestrian. So bike maps is a really good resource to check out when you're trying to look at certain intersections that you feel, it's just a challenging intersection. And bikemaps.org will show people who have had challenges at that intersection, near misses or crashes, and highlight that on the map. The CRD bike map is a good resource as well. I'll discuss it a bit more later. So there's a paper on an online version, and it does a good job of showing different route possibilities, but there are some challenges with how they've coordinated. Sorry, not coordinated, but how they've classified different routes. OpenStreetMap.org is actually a great resource. It has very, very high level of detail for each of the individual routes. Unfortunately, it runs into the same mapping problems that Google Maps has when you're trying to lay out a route. Sometimes it's just going to give you a very nonsensical route. And then bikerouteplanner.com. If you're ever actually in Vancouver, I highly recommend checking out that tool for getting around Vancouver. Okay, moving on. So I'm actually going to hop over to the suggested routes that people had sent in, and I'm going to review a number of these right now. Ooh, I don't like that. Full screen, please. Okay. So everyone can see this okay, I'm assuming. Okay. Just want to make sure there's no chats in the chat. Yeah, Joanne, I can definitely send slides. I can definitely share these maps with folks as well. Sorry, I also neglected to mention that we are recording as well, this session, so folks can review it after the fact. Um, so let's start with this route here. So this is from Hide and Seek Coffee in Fairfield, all the way up to University of Victoria. And you know what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to throw this route into Google. Field to Vic, and I'm just going to remember what the default route it gave me was. Yeah, so we can see here on the default route from Google Maps, it has told us to, oh no, sorry, that is why it's doing that. So if I go click on the car route options, I mean, Google has been kind enough to warn us off taking Foul Bay Road for for probably the worst stretch of it, going from Richardson to Oak Bay Avenue to Cabra Bay Avenue. This section of Foul Bay Avenue is particularly foul. So one recommendation Google has made is to take Richmond all the way up to to Fort to Foul Bay, and then Foul Bay all the way up. Looking at this route myself, I mean, there's definitely some trade-offs here. I'm personally a much bigger fan of the Dean Street connection. between Richmond and Foul Bay, um, which you can get to via so Richmond, which, this stretch of Richmond, and, this definitely highlights some of the challenges because I heard from a number of folks who were curious about routes in Fairfield up to UVic, and you can definitely see that we really lack safe connections for a route from kind of South Oak Bay, Fairfield area up to the University of Victoria. There's some major gaps in the routing, and of course, this section around Foul Bay is definitely the worst. Um, so yeah, the route that I've come up with just takes you up Richmond, definitely the stretch of Richmond from prior to Fort down to Oak Bay Avenue. Not a pleasant ride. Gets a bit better next to the hospital because you've got a bike lane, and then once you've turned off onto Haltane, you're pretty much on a pretty reasonably safe and comfortable route going the rest of the way. So, um, but yeah, as you can see, Google has advised you to stay off Foul Bay Road and has sent you on a very interesting detour um, on Monterey Avenue, where, of course, very unfortunate death of an Oak Bay municipal worker at the hands of a driver of a SUV, I believe. So, even the routes that Google are suggesting, not necessarily, frankly, not necessarily safe for folks, but um, moving on. So one person had a question about a route from University of Victoria down to Sachs Point. Um, so I'm just going to make sure because I'm not able. Actually, what I'll do is I'll drag this over here onto my other window. Oh, Carolyn said she can't see my screen. Can other folks see my screen okay? Yes. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so moving on. So here we have a route from UVic down to Sachs Point. So I believe yeah, this was definitely not the default route that Google gave me. I'm just going to do that really quickly. UVic to Sachs Point Park. So yeah, we can see here the default route that Google has given us sends us down. So I mean, really, we've got two options. Uh, we can take Mackenzie Avenue. Well, I don't really think that's much of an option. You can see just by the breakdown here on Google that the Mackenzie route, longer distance, and this stretch along Mackenzie, pretty unpleasant to ride. Once you get on the trail here at Lochside, much more pleasant trip, but this stretch quite unpleasant. Also, much more unpleasant to ride the other way because it's quite hilly. So this stretch along UVic to Henderson. So yeah, here we've got either Richmond or Foul Bay, and again, Dean Street to Haltane, much more much better preferred option as a UVic to downtown route. Something I have advocated for to get this properly signed. So starting at University of Victoria, going down Henderson, taking this little trail of this little multi-use pathway along here, and then going down Dean Street all the way to Haltane, riding Haltane along past Fernwood Road, and then when you get to Cedar Hill Road here, you hang a left, and then you cross. You've got a safe control crossing at Bay Street. I mean, safe-ish. Um, Down Walnut, up to Princess. You've got a full controlled light crossing here at Cook Street, onto Vancouver. From Vancouver, pretty safe route onto Pandora, down Pandora, and then, of course, no, I didn't do it on this map, but your other option is to cross the bridge here um, and get on to, oh, sorry, here, and then get on to Kimta and the ENN Trail, and that's going to take you to here, and then you've got a bit of you're going to have to get on a Esquimalt Road, not the most pleasant road, not the least pleasant road. You do have the option here at Dunsmuir of turning off and taking Dunsmuir and then Lyle Street as an off Esquimalt connection, and then down Fraser to Sachs Point Park. So, yeah, so as I tell folks again and again, if you're looking for a route from UVic to downtown or downtown to UVic, highly recommend Vancouver Street, Princess, uh, Chambers, Walnut, Cedar Hill Road, Hultane connection, and then Dean Street to Lansdowne, Camosun College, and then just get on Foul Bay for the rest of the way. Yeah, and as Alex said, Richmond is narrow. Um, yeah, so it's looking at Foul Bay and Richmond, you really have, frankly, two bad options in terms of which route to take. Um, Especially kind of from Oak Bay Avenue to Fort Street on either of these roads is a really unpleasant ride. Okay, so that's the Sax Point Park one. So yeah, and you can see the route that Google has given you is, Foul Bay. Again, it's the route you would drive, right? Foul Bay, Fort Street, Pandora. Um, Definitely not a very comfortable route. And then same here down Richmond, really not a good route from the only stretch of Richmond I would say I would feel comfortable. I think most folks feel comfortable riding is from Fort Street, pretty much to Hultane, because you've got a bike lane for most of that stretch. I think it ends right around here. Um, but yeah, again, just not quite giving you the best route. St. Charles, this was an interesting one. So somebody asked for a route from St. Charles Avenue to to kind of the Jutland Selkirk area. That's what I'm looking for. So and I really enjoy routes like this because they kind of demonstrate the trade-offs that you have to engage in. So this person's on St. Charles Street, close to Rockland. So, they could try going down Richardson, down St. Charles to Richardson, and then along Richardson, connect up to Humboldt and then through to Wharf here. That's a very large detour. Um, if they wanted a more faster route, their best bet is to head up St. Charles Street to Fort Street, but then we have an issue of an uncontrolled left turn here. So if we go look at this, um, we can see here that they've got to make a left-hand turn here onto Fort Street and then continue straight. So I don't know so as folks probably are aware, Fort Street is being redesigned and rebuilt right now to have protected bike lanes. So yeah, I don't know what the changes are going to be made here. But I mean, traffic should be moving slower. I don't know if there's going to be something to facilitate more easily making a left turn, but that would be ideal here. I mean, this is an instance where, you may want to cheat, hop up on the sidewalk here, head to the light, cross here safely at the light, and then continue up Fort Street. Um, and yeah, this is an example where, yeah, so once the bike lane is completed on Fort Street, what you could actually do is ride Fort all the way down to Wharf and then get on Wharf to Pandora and then up here. So yeah, this is an example of a route that I think will be improving in the not too distant future. 'Cause, Yates Street is regular protected, regular painted bike lane, not a super pleasant experience to ride on. Fort Street definitely would be a better option for folks. So uh, sounds like somebody needs to be admitted. Okay. And yeah, and folks, if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to enter them into the chat as we go along. Yeah, and the other person also asked for a route from St. Charles Street to Pandora Avenue, and and I mean you can see for this one, you've again got some complicated routes that I mean, here it's kind of like, what are your options? Riding Cook Street's pretty unpleasant. You've still got this difficult turn, and then you've got um, this intersection. If you connect onto Stanley here onto Johnson, you're going to make kind of an awkward left-hand turn onto Pandora here. Um, so your best bet might be just to stay on, like I said before, stay on Fort Street once this is completed, head down to Vancouver Street, head up Vancouver Street to either Balmoral or North Park, and then turn on here and just minimize your time on Cook Street as best you can and utilize Vancouver and Fort Street to get yourself around. Uh, so this one was great. I definitely really liked this one. It was Belmont Road, so kind of the Colwood CF, some of the military housing there, um, and getting up to to Esquimalt Graving dock, so right by Colville and Admiral. So what I really want to highlight for folks here on this route is that what you really need here is some better connections between this Belmont Park, this whole connection, and the trail. Because I've actually ridden this once or twice in the day, this connection here from the base area on from the housing onto the trail, and it's not a good connection. But you can see here, right? Like you don't really have great connections, and if you did, then you could very easily get from this, from this whole area over to the trail very easily, and then get yourself on the trail. And as you can see here, Google has said, go down Island Highway. But I mean, you can kind of see why Google has told you to go down Island Highway because it is a fairly substantial detour um, to take. This is the Galloping Goose Trail, so definitely would recommend looking at taking the Galloping Goose Trail over and then crossing and then getting on the ENN Trail. And then from the ENN Trail, it's a very simple ride. So, if you're in a hurry, by all means, look at taking Island Highway. The first section of Island Highway is fine, fine being it's got bike lanes. It's not a pleasant experience. Where you really get into trouble with Island Highway is right around here, 6 Mile Bridge, where you don't really have much in the way of safe crossing. You do have a bike lane, but I believe, yeah, it ends a bit further up. Yeah. So crosses the bridge, then it's gone, then you're kind of wrestling with traffic for a decent chunk of time. But again, as an alternative, you can just hop on the Galloping Goose Trail and take that as an alternate route. But yeah, I would talk to Colwood, I would talk to um, whatever authorities you can to see if you can improve access to the Galloping Goose Trail here. So this person was wondering about a route from Veterans Memorial. And Goldstream. This one's very simple. I don't know if folks are aware. There's a new the ENN rail trail has now been completed from Goldstream and Veterans all the way to where it links up with the Galloping Goose Trail, and then on up to this crossing's a bit off. This is the other thing is that sometimes Google will just give you goofy crossings like this. So you definitely don't want to cross at Atkins Road here. You want to continue on the trail up until the proper crossing up here. So yeah, cross here and then head over, and then you're cruising you're cruising down to the base. Okay, next one, aggregate court to Goldstream here. So again, we've got access to the ENN Trail. We've got Galloping Goose Trail, which can take you most of the way through. Again, Google's done a goofy little thing where it's told you to take Brittany Drive to Kelly Road instead of just staying on the trail all the way. This is a bit of an awkward crossing here, but it's manageable. And then just stay on the trail to Suk Row. And then this, of course, is this is where we get into an interesting conundrum here because we're at Suk Road and the Galloping Goose Trail, so this is right by a rural road. So, you could continue to ride it all the way around, and you could get on Island Highway for a little bit here. Relatively easy to cross here. Head down, hang a right up here. I mean, you could go down Suk Road. This is a downhill descent. I can't recall if there's a bike lane along this stretch. I don't believe so. No, I think yeah. So this would be a pretty unpleasant route down, relatively short. But then you've also got to make a bit of a tricky left-hand turn. So yeah, again, not a super ideal route, but you can see how, you can see a bit why Google has recommended it just on the basis of some of the other route challenges. Um, Sorry, and I see some of the questions. Does the application show the distance of the route? Yes, it does. So if you are using Google Maps, it will show you the distance of the route. Uh, Laura asked a question regarding a scenario where I use a pedestrian crosswalk. Is it appropriate to ride across? So you should dismount if you come to a crosswalk if it appears that crosswalk does not have what are called elephant's feet. So it's confusing. The answer is you might be able to ride through the crosswalk. If the crosswalk is on some sort of trail system, then you're typically allowed to ride through those. So, whether you're on the Galloping Goose or ENN Trail, the Saanich Centennial Trails, you do have um, you do have the option of riding through those. But if you're just using a regular pedestrian crosswalk on a regular road, such as the one on Fort Street, you should technically dismount as much as you should dismount when you're on the sidewalk. Um, of course, the challenge with that is if you're an individual who's riding some form of adaptive bicycle or a bicycle or a heavier bicycle, a bicycle that helps you get around but might be more difficult to maneuver when you're not on it. I see plenty of people riding tricycles or other forms of bikes, recumbents that are just difficult to move around when you're not riding them. So yeah, so I'd say in terms of the letter of the law, it speaks pretty clearly to dismount, but of course, the law is in some cases not really taking into account the different abilities of individuals riding bikes and who are just trying to safely get themselves across the road. Um, yeah, okay, so moving on to our next route, and sorry, I actually am just going to quickly show this one again because I want to show the suggested route that Google comes up with, because it's an interesting one. Bring it up here. How am I doing for time? 12:30. I'm doing great for time. Let's throw that in. There you go. So what does Google tell you to do? Google tells you to just, don't worry about it. Just either take Brittany Drive, Phipps Road, which just goes right up through the middle. Lots of traffic on this section. I'm quite certain there isn't bike lanes on this section. Let me double check that though, actually. Uh, I mean, I guess that's a bike lane. I guess you could call that a bike lane. Yeah, it looks like Phipps does have some bike lanes. I mean, you've got lots of challenges at intersections with just lots of merging and turning traffic. So this, you know, is a possible route option for you. Um, both of these routes are similar distances, so I mean, I would strongly recommend not riding along Veterans Memorial Parkway. Um, and then, of course, you get up here to the ENN Trail, which can then get you up to Goldstream and then down Goldstream and then all the way there. So, yeah, you can see here that the route that I ended up going, suggesting to you was this bottom route here, essentially taking the trail and then considering, doing a detour all the way around the rest. So you are very welcome, Natalie, happy to assist. Um, so there's another one from Aggregate Court, and that was Aggregate Court to Darwin Avenue. Yes. So this one's nice and easy. So all you're going to do here is just get yourself on the ENN trail here, or sorry, the Galloping Goose Trail here, silly me. The ENN trail, if you're curious, is it's right up here. Doesn't really go anywhere though. Anyways, so aggregate court. So get yourself on the trail, and you just stay on the trail. Oh, and you can see here. Look at that. Google has told me to take Island Highway instead of the trail because it's faster, but that's not a great idea. So yeah, we'll take the trail. We'll just continue on the trail the entire way, past the hospital, all the way, and then you get on a little bit of Lochside here, and then right around Saanich City Hall, you just turn right on Darwin, and there you are. This is actually directed you off Nigel Avenue, so it's Garth Romer Society. So I mean, you can either access on Nigel Avenue or Darwin, I believe. So either way, you've got from Edgar Court in Langford, you've got almost an entirely trail route getting you out there. So that's actually really nice. That's a really solid 15K ride. This next one, really easy. Saanich Center to Maddox Farm. So Saanich Center right around Mackenzie Quadra. all this really is just getting yourself on the trail here and just continuing up the trail all the way past Blenkinsop Lake, into Royal Oak, past Royal Oak, up Cordova Bay. This is Lochside Trail taking you all the way to Maddox Farm. Absolutely gorgeous ride, one I enjoy doing once in a while, but very simple ride. Very lucky to have access to these old rail beds that's what Lochside is an old rail bed that was converted into, well, partly converted into trail. There's obviously lots of residential. And yeah, absolutely gorgeous route. So moving on Wark Street to Feltham. Um, so yeah, this was another one of those routes that I'm just, kind of scratching my head saying, well, how do I do this safely? So you've got Work Street here, close to Bay Street. You look at the route that's suggested by, I'm actually just going to quickly bring this one up. Yeah, so I really had a good laugh at Google here because the route that Google gives me are just bananas. So you can see here with Google, I've got the suggestion to get across town for my east-west connection. I'm either going to take Finlayson, Hillside, or Bay Street. So yeah, no, definitely not taking any of those routes. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones where I just say to myself, well, Google, you've really not done yourself a solid here, anybody a solid here. So you can see here generally somewhere between around 8 kilometers, 30 minutes, 30 plus minutes for this route. So I go back to the route that I created. 35 minutes, 8.7 kilometers. So a little bit longer and a little bit more time, but very marginal considering I think you're getting a much, much, much safer and more comfortable route. So the biggest challenge with this route is crossing Bay Street here because this is an uncontrolled intersection. Um, there are definitely breaks in the traffic because you've got traffic lights at Quadra and Blanchard that are, controlling the flow of traffic. So you should have a break, but yeah, this is a tough one. You could bike around to Dowler. You do have a crossing here you could cross at Dowler with, and then get yourself onto Kings Road, and then Kings connected up to Holtane. Or you could head down Wark Street here, cross at Queens. Again, that's an uncontrolled intersection. You could hang a right here. You know what? Actually, maybe this is a route I didn't consider, but if you time it well, you should be able to make a right here when there's no traffic along here, because the light cycle on Blanchard here is quite long, so you should be able to pretty safely turn here, not be harassed by too many vehicles before you get to Quadra Street, cross Quadra Street, then you're on a bike lane, get yourself down to Vancouver Street, Graham Street, cross at the crossing here, get yourself to Graham, or just stay on Bay Street, turn at Cook, get on here. But you can see, yeah, like you're going to have to make lots of detours to get yourself on the safe cycling route here on Kings, do this loop here. But again, it's a pretty substantial detour, which is why Google doesn't like it. And then we just do our usual Haltane to Dean Street up. Now, to get yourself to Feltham, really, yeah, I would recommend, especially given that you're on the section of Feltham that's so close to Gordon Head, cutting through campus and finding one of the many routes through campus to get you onto Gordon Head Road and then onto Feltham. I believe you do have a pedestrian crossing here that if you wanted to use. Yeah, you do have a pedestrian crossing here if you wanted to use that. So, okay, moving on. Vic West. I like this one a lot because this is a good route to illustrate certain challenges. So I was requested a route from Vic West to UVic, so I chose Vic West Community Center. Because the point I want to make here is that if you're in Vic West and you're kind of higher up in Vic West, well, you're not going to go across the Johnson Street Bridge down Pandora, Vancouver Street to take this connection because you're going to have to come down quite a ways and then come back up. You'd much prefer to just get yourself to the Selkirk Trestle, cross over, and then try to find yourself a route. But you've got lots of challenges with routes in this area, I find. I really don't enjoy trying to find, there just doesn't seem to exist any really good safe cycling routes that are going to get you um, from this area up to UVic. So the three options that Google gives you, aren't terrible, I will say, actually. So the first route, you've got Mackenzie, you've got the Lochside Trail to Mackenzie, and then taking Mackenzie the rest of the way. Now, Sandage has put concrete barriers along these bike lanes from Mackenzie, so that does improve it. It is a bit of a hill, and it's a lot of traffic on that road. You've got 4 lanes, just lots of traffic, pretty unpleasant stretch of road in my experience. Um, One of the better alternatives, I'd say, is this one here. So getting off at Cloverdale, taking Cloverdale up, going through this pretty awful intersection here at Quadra, making a left on Camrose Crescent, and then doing this Derby connection across the Cedar Hill Golf Course, down Cedar Hill. You've got a nice protected bike lane here on this stretch in front of Doncaster Elementary, hanging a right on Pear Street, crossing Shelburne here at a nice light, and then continuing up the rest of the way to UVic. There's actually what you should really do is take Iona Drive and connect yourself up to Midgard here. So I just did something bad there. Oh wow. And then connect yourself up to Midgard there. I really didn't like that route that I just. Anyways, yeah. So I would definitely that's the route I would take for sure. Then your only kind of concern is crossing Cedar Hill Cross. Getting into the left lane, and there is a controlled turn lane here. Getting onto Iona and turning and coming up here, up Midgard, and the rest of the way. Now this route I really enjoyed. This was Camosun College. I used to work at Camosun College for the Students' Union, so I would regularly travel between the two campuses. And we definitely lack safe routes between the campus. And I actually am going to do this one as well because Camosun College, Lansdowne. How am I doing for time? I'm doing good for time. Yeah, so the suggestion from, oh, that's fascinating. Because when I did this the other day, it gave me an entirely different route. Wow, that is really something. That is really something. That is very interesting. Um, Jeez. Okay, so wow, this is an entirely different route than what Google gave me before, which is really something. Um, so yeah, and this route is just really challenging, as you can see, because it's suggestion of either. I mean, it's suggesting either going all the way downtown, um, taking an absolutely huge detour, taking Hillside down to Doncaster, and then getting on Finlayson, riding Finlayson to Blanchard Street, and then Blanchard Street at this really awkward connection over here. Like, wow, these are some not great routes. So let's see the one that I came up with. So the one I came up with has some challenges as well. This first section along Richmond is quite unpleasant to ride. It's a bit uphill, fair amount of traffic, decent amount of traffic on the stretch, no bike lane. You've got to make an uncontrolled left onto McRae, so I'm already breaking some of my rules. But the good news is that once you've made that left-hand turn onto McRae, it's pretty smooth sailing, cross Shelbourne, hop on the Bowker Creek Greenway, take it up to Derby, take the Derby connection through Cedar Hill Golf Course, um, do this little jog I was talking about before from Derby, Maplewood, Camrose Crescent onto Cook Street, down Cloverdale. So again, using this route that I used before to get from here up to UVic. So, very similar route. Get on the trail and then turn yourself off at Interurban Road here. Now, as an alternative, you could take Colquitt's River Trail, which kind of dipsy doodles around and heads up to by Panama Flats, through here and up. And it's a beautiful ride. It's definitely a longer detour. Um, cut yourself up through here, and then eventually you've got to make your way over and somehow do a connection, I think, on Allen Road here. So you've got a little bit of space on Richardson, Richardson on Wilkinson. So it's a big detour. It's a much more pleasant route, but it's not super intuitive on the route to take. And it's one of those instances where I would recommend taking interurban if you're in a bit of a hurry. So it's definitely a challenge. Okay, I'm going to whip through these last few ones, and I'm going to go back to my presentation because I do talk about some of the mapping tools, and I see that Laura did ask a question about how to handle this. So this one is Johnson Street Bridge to Estevan Park. This one's really easy. Pandora, Vancouver, and then using our Princess, Chambers, Walnut, Cedar Hill connection to Haltane. Haltane all the way down, and then east down, Estevan Avenue connection all the way. So really pleasant route. Definitely worth checking out Willows Park, grabbing something from the little Kiwanis kiosk, or lots of cute little stores in Estevan Village worth shopping at. Lauder Road in Saanich, this is by 10 Mile Point all the way down to Cook Street. So the point to make on this route is that you really don't have a lot of good options here. So you could take Sinclair Road up to UVic and then utilize cycling routes through UVic, which obviously is very unpleasant given the extremely steep hill at Sinclair. So your other option would be to get on Cabarrot Bay Road, also an unpleasant road given the two-lane car parking and just not enough space there. I mean, Cabarrot Bay Road is a perfect candidate to get rid of all the parking and put some protected bike lanes on for its entire duration. And then from there, you've got to decide whether or not you want to stay on Cabarrot Bay Road, which is also a very unpleasant experience. Oops, I'm on the driving instructions. Let's see yeah, so we can see here that a UVic is, not UVic. It's an interesting connection I never knew about, and I don't think I'd ever take that one. Cabarrot Bay Road onto Lansdowne. This section of Lansdowne is pretty unpleasant to cycle. Yeah, but really your best bet is to actually take Sinclair up to UVic and then come down because you actually have bike lanes. Because for this entire section of Cabarrot Bay Road, no bike lane, before you can connect Dean Street. And yeah. Coming to the end here, so pure vanilla. So I was sent this route from a participant asking about what I felt about this route versus other potential routes. So you can see here, first section here looks good. Coming down Foul Bay Road, this is a decent section of Foul Bay Road to ride because it's got bike lanes. This section of Fort Street will be upgraded soon. The left-hand turn here is a bit difficult, and then you've got little jogs here that take you down to Madison, and then you can get yourself on Richardson going all the way. So this section in here is a bit challenging to ride as well. But on a whole, this is a pretty good route. It's actually a good alternative for Foul Bay Avenue. Yeah, the Madison Street connection going up. But again, it's like, what's your location? It's not necessarily going to be a good route for some folks if you're kind of further to the east. The suggested route that I came up with pretty much is just the same route we've looked at before. So getting yourself onto the Haltane connection and taking it all the way in, and then Parkside is the final spot. So and then Google. And again, Google Maps refuses to have you go down Vancouver Street crossing Pandora. So try as hard as you might, Google will not allow you to. Oh no, look at that. It did there. I was trying this for a while yesterday, and Google was just not having it. Oh, no, you can see there. Oh, whoa, ho, ho, ho. Did I actually do it? Oh my goodness. Except it's giving me now it's telling me to take Bay Street part of the way, which is funny. Anyways, I think that's it for my route. So, just getting back quickly to my presentation. Yeah, so I do just want to quickly mention the CRD bike map because it is a good resource to check out because it gives you some good, gives you an outlay of the bike routes because unlike Google, Google's just not really going to give you much of a differentiation between the different routes. This is going to give you a bit more of an idea of what to expect on the routes. Part of the challenge here, though, is that you can see the coloring they've used is a bit questionable. So you can see, for instance, Richardson Street here, which the city of Victoria has now traffic calmed. So they've put in a number of traffic diverters and speed bumps, yet they still have it as orange. So they still have it as not as this level of safety you see on a green route. Not to mention the fact they have Vancouver Street, which is also has has been traffic calmed to a pretty high degree that you would think it's definitely closer to AAA than say Dallas Road here. This connection going around is a quite an unpleasant ride. It's, the road's pretty narrow and you get lots of traffic going in either direction, kind of flying around the corner. So yeah, this tool is okay, but it's definitely flawed because, you really can't differentiate between some of the routes here. And then some routes are entirely missing, which I find very odd. Um, and you see here Obed Avenue, for instance, right in Saanich, like Obed Avenue should be on this map, but it's not. For instance, so again, it's a decent resource, but again, it definitely has its flaws. I mean, same with here, Cabro Bay Road, Lansdowne. So it's like there's a very different riding experience between going on Cabro Bay Road and riding down Haltane Street. And unfortunately, this map doesn't really offer you much of a differentiation. I mean, what's nice about this map is it does show you some of the connections that you might miss out on. Um, but even then, some of those connections are missing, such as the Bowker Creek Greenway has been highlighted on this map. Um, yeah. Seeing if I have any other. Yeah, so some of my notes highlights them better than Google Maps, different color type, no differentiating shared use routes, lack of standard for adding new routes across the region, some routes in Saanich missing due to having more than 1,000 cars today above provincial shared road standards. Um, and then bike maps, I was mentioning before, so it shows you certain areas to highlight for potential conflicts. And yeah, as to the question from Carolyn, yeah, I've talked to the city too about this, and yeah, they said that they have contacted Google regarding this. So, I think there might be something for Capital Bike to do in that regard. It might be, we could look at sending out a press release to local media and highlighting these challenges and trying to get local media to contact Google for comment. I think that might if the PR department gets involved, that might change things in terms of giving them an impetus to, demonstrate that, oh, hey, we're actually doing something about this. So, um, so that's one thing we can definitely look at in the future. But yeah, it is, yeah, as the point of just like, how do you become knowledgeable about these things? I mean, yeah, it's definitely trial and error. I really strongly encourage you to contact Capital Bike if you have any questions. Send us an email, ideally. And I answer pretty much all the emails we receive regarding route requests, and I'm happy to assist you with creating a safe route. And my only request in response to that, if you're interested in supporting Capital Bike, please go to our website and sign up as a member. Because the more members we have, the more money we have, the more sway we have when dealing with government, and the more we can do to build safer cycling infrastructure, and not just cycling infrastructure, but active transportation infrastructure to get more people out of their cars and more people biking and walking, which are all very, very important goals that we're all trying to achieve. Oh, somebody waiting in the lobby. Um, so I think that's it for me, folks. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. You can also raise your hand and I can enable your mic because we've got a couple minutes left. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you have. I can also wrap things up a few minutes early and eat my lunch and go back to work. Anybody? 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 Routes from Brentwood Bay to downtown. I'll show you something quickly, Jennifer. Let's see here. I think I'll do this and then I will wrap it up. Um, Brentwood Bay to downtown Victoria. So yeah, you definitely lack safe cycling routes, and that's really a concern. So, your most direct connection is Keating, which you're obviously not going to take because that's about as unpleasant a route as you can get. Um, you could um, you could take Wallace Drive all the way up to geez, to not to Stellies, but you'd want to go all the way up to Mount Newton to get over to the trail. That's obviously extremely not desirable. Um, so the other route is to take Wallace Drive down, um, which is not a great route, but not a terrible route at the same time. The nice thing about Wallace Drive is once you hit the Red Barn Market, you can actually get on trails virtually the rest of the way. So you've got this interurban rail trail, it's called, I believe, and a very pleasant ride. I've done it numerous times, and you can actually ride it all the way down to, you can keep riding it, and then you can take this awesome little connection onto what's called Elk Road here from Gowards. This is Interurban and West Saanich Road. And then you can take this Elk Road connection all the way down. And then you get to Quail, which is where the horticultural gardens are. And you can actually, it doesn't show you here, but you can definitely cheat and well, not cheap, but you can take this connection here or go all the way down Quail Road. Get on this trail here. This takes you by Glendale Gardens, and then this route will take you into Coast and College Interurban. And then from there, you can go across here, and this will take you over to Mann Avenue. And then from Mann Avenue, you can hop on the Colquitt's River Trail down, or you can take Colquitt's pretty much all the way, and then it goes down over here, or you can get on Vanalman, you can climb Commerce Circle here, and then you can take this connection. So this is Bremerton Street, and it goes all the way down, and then eventually it turns into Raymond Street. And this will take you, and then this crosses, this is a pretty crappy bridge here at Mackenzie Avenue by Mackenzie Elementary. You can cross that bridge. And then Saanich has actually done some major upgrades to Columbine Way, so you can now safely, I'll show you this here, it probably doesn't have the update yet. Oh no, this was September 2021. Yeah, so this whole section's be rebuilt so that you can easily get a bike up there. And then you can just continue on all the way down to continue all the way down to Tillicum and the Galloping Goose Trail, and then just get on the Galloping Goose Trail and then down into downtown Victoria. So to the person who asked that, Jennifer, yeah, if you want to send me an email, I can send you this route. If you want to just send an email to info@capitalbike, I'm happy to send you this route. Okay, and I'm going to wrap it up, folks. Thanks very much. Hope you're all participating in Go By Bike Week next week. And again, if you have any questions about safe cycling routes, feel free to let us know, and hope to see you out at some of our celebration stations. So thanks very much, folks. Really appreciate your time today.